Hello and welcome to Level Up Solution Demo on the Ansible Tower Difference with Windows Automation. In the course of the video sequence to follow, we'll be covering quite a bit of ground, starting with how we can quickly connect Windows systems to be managed by Ansible Tower, all the way to complex scenarios with workflow templates and a number of other common Windows administration tasks in between. So just to introduce Ansible Automation Platform briefly, in the left-hand diagram, we can see that Ansible has taken a leadership position, and in the right-hand diagram, we can see that Red Hat is the only leader in this space that is 100% based on open source. We think that both things are important. Next, we should also take a look at the Cloud Native Computing Foundation's landscape and see that in a crowded landscape that can be confusing for customers, Ansible is really starting to stand out quite a bit. I wish this were actually a relief map to show just how popular and how well-funded Ansible is as an overall solution. With that said, what we see when we think about Ansible and why we prefer it to some of the other solutions on the market, it's because it's easy to read. There's nothing to install in remote nodes, as we'll see. It's push-based, and it has over 3,000 modules at this point that are built in. It's declarative and version controllable, which is important because we want to do things more like infrastructure as code as opposed to traditional approaches. All of this means that it's also very friendly to developer self-service and it integrates quite nicely with our existing CI/CD pipelines. Because it's so easy to read and so many things are built in, it's actually a very quick ramp up for infrastructure and network teams as well. And it is a top 10 project by contributors on GitHub as of today. So everything that you get from Ansible community is there in the gray box, and Ansible Tower is everything else. So it's a full UI experience, and we'll actually be taking a look at a demo on this now. So starting with a login, we find our Tower dashboard. And so we have a number of hosts here, including one that's deliberately in a failed state. We see a job status histogram here, shows kind of rate of change. We also see templates and job runs that have actually been performed. We have a few other views that we can look at here, including a few different amounts of depth that we can see in this demo. Next, we can look at schedule. So this is helpful because while Ansible is push-based, we also have the ability to schedule tasks and make it a little bit more of a pull-based experience. Another thing that we probably want to talk about a little bit is how we actually configure Ansible Tower to read our infrastructure code. And so normally it's really just as simple as pointing it at something like a GitHub URL or something along those lines, passing credentials to it. And so the repo in question is here, and we're seeing some of the playbook files in this view. And so once we have that established, what we're able to do is go into things like templates. And what we're able to do when we filter in on just the Windows templates that are part of this demo sequence, we can see some of the details behind that. So pointing at the Ansible demos project with an inventory, with credentials, and with the playbook, all we have to do to choose that is just pick from this drop down here. And we set up a few other basic things just to put ourselves in a position where we can actually run these jobs via these templates. So the stack is basically that we're creating a playbook, we're defining it as a template, and we're running it on the managed systems in question. Tower gives us quite a bit of other flexibility in terms of some of the things that it can do. Certainly want to call out the fact that it can take dynamic sources, in this case an EC2 environment, that we can configure basically just through pointing at, with any kind of credentials, pointing at an Amazon EC2 environment. A lot of the other things are abstracted in this view, but it can work with both static and dynamic inventory sources, and that's very helpful. We also have the ability to have multiple organizations defined. Obviously, everyone can work as themselves in an RBAC model. We can also have teams that are set up to segment or otherwise help isolate groups from one another from a permissions perspective, etc. And so that's just a brief look at Tower. We'll be going into the hands-on demo portions in the following clips.